the world in planetary darkness. The chill rises from the soil. Every time is the air. Suddenly, life has new meaning. penetrating darkness, a chill arises from the soil and contaminates the air. Close the world and penetrating darkness. The chill rises from the soil and contaminates the air. Suddenly life has new meaning.